Hey, you ever out and about and thinking, man, I love that piece of apparel, and wondering, how did they do that? Yeah? Well, I'm gonna go around the office today and we're gonna see what we can find to recreate. I'm sure we're gonna find something really awesome. So if you're ready, let's go. Hey, come over here, check it out. Over there, look. You see that? It's the Miami hat. Let's go, come on. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Dude, I like your hat, man.
Thanks, man.
You mind if I borrow it for a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You're not gonna wanna miss this episode. It's gonna come out great. All right, let's take a look. This is a very nice hat. So when we look at this is pretty complex, and we're gonna try to dissect it and see how we can deconstruct it so we can make it again. So what we have here is an amalgamation of fonts, 5 different fonts, each done in its own way. When we look at the A, the way it's constructed, it has a satin stitch in black, and all of them are perpendicular to the letter, so they're all pointing at the letter. Almost like a sunburst. Everything is emitting from the center. And then that is followed by a yellow satin border, and then we have the red puff on top of that. These are all satin stitches. Now, there is puff involved, but the core of this design is all satin stitches. So the eye has a white base satin stitch. It has a border, a black satin stitch border, and also it has the little caps at the ends on the satin stitch, which has foam underneath. This M, the pink, is just a satin stitch for the 3D look. And then we have a satin stitch on top, and it looks like the little caps were first, then this one, then that one here, and then it was just one continuous satin stitch all around. Going to this M right here is pink satin on the base, and then just a satin stitch that goes all around, and it looks like it's just one, like a pen stroke, just like this, and that's just a satin stitch with the foam underneath. And again, you can see the caps where the foam is cut. Remember, when you do puff embroidery, you have to have caps on the exposed ends, otherwise you're gonna be stuck with the foam not being able to take it out. These satin stitches on the M, they're actually satin stitches that interlock like this. And so where they interlock is where you're gonna see that little groove on the M to make it seem like a pen stroke, like you were doing it with pen. And this is really nice, a very nice technique over here. And finally, the eye has red satin stitches around. And again, they're all radiating from the center, so they're all perpendicular to the center of the eye. You don't want them all to be in one direction. And then the eye has its caps and also the horizontal satin stitches to enclose the foam underneath. So when we make this hat, the tricky part is we can't apply one layer of foam. We're gonna have to do each letter one at a time. We're gonna put red foam on this one. We're gonna put red foam here. We're gonna put some type of blue foam. We're gonna put yellow foam, and we're gonna do the black foam. You always wanna try to match the foam to the color of thread that you're using, just in case, so that the thread doesn't peek out, or so that the foam doesn't peek out of the thread, okay? We're gonna take some measurements to make sure we get it right. Now, the measurements don't have to be exact, but we're gonna try to get it as close as possible. This is a round surface, so we're gonna have to try to flatten it out in order to get all our measurements. So what we can do is, back in the days of the hieroglyphs and the pyramids, they used to do rubbing. So I'm gonna take this piece of paper. This is just one technique that I'm gonna show you. And you can take a pencil. Notice I've shaved all the wood off this pencil, and I can do like an old style rubbing. And you can see the letter is starting to materialize right in front of your eyes. So if you're out and you can't bring the guy's hat home, the hat that you just took off his head to your house, you can kind of do this technique. All right, so when we put this down, we have M-I-A-M-I, just like that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, now that I have a template, I'm gonna start measuring. You guys can use a floppy ruler, or in my trusty toolbox, you can use a tape measure. Either measure it in inches or in centimeters. And it looks like it's about 5 inches from side to side. So the whole width is 5 inches. The thickness of the first eye is about 1 5/8 inches. And I'm gonna draw the eye, right? And don't forget there is that outline around it. All right, the M is approximately 1.5 inches. And I mean, we have it there. So all we have to do is really just kind of follow this template here. And we could import this as a what is that called? A backdrop. We can import this as a backdrop and just digitize it right from this drawing right here. All right, and we're just using these for a rough estimate. So with this, that's all we need. It's 5, and the widest point is 1 5/8. So both eyes are approximately 1 5/8, and the eye has the white base, and it has the black border, which makes it 1 5/8. Now remember, the A comes first because the eye is on top of it, so there is an overlap of the eye. And then comes the M because you can see the little tip overlaps just the side of the eye. And the M is just butted up against the side of the A. And finally, this eye is on top of that. Now that we have all the measurements we need, we can go straight to digitizing. Another way of taking measurements is you could take pictures of each individual letter and then import it as a backdrop image into Ricoma, and you can digitize each letter individually. All right, now that we're done with the front, this hat also has a small little back part, and it's just the MIA. So we're not gonna have to do anything extra. Simply take the MIA from here, reduce it, remove the puff, and just run it just by the MIA. So we really don't have to digitize it twice. We're gonna take this regular design, we're gonna delete these 2 images from it, and just use the MIA to recreate the back. And the size is approximately 1 inch. So they're about 1 inch letters. So all we have to do is take our digitizing, shrink the 5 and 1 5/8 to 1 inch, and that's it. But this is a 2-step process. The first is gonna use the cap hoop. For the back, we're gonna use a mighty hoop. I happen to have one right here. All right, guys, let's go digitize. All right, this is how we did it. I'm going to play it back little by little and walk you through the process step by step. With our autoplay, I'm gonna drag this. We're gonna start at the very beginning. So we're gonna start with the A. The letter A is the first letter that we're doing, and all the other letters are overlapped on top of that. We're using the black as a base. Everything I'm using here is a satin stitch. Nothing fancy. Everything will be done with a satin stitch. The satin starts with the A. We lay down the base, the underlay. It's gonna do satin over it. That's our black. Then we're gonna put the yellow, which remember to overlap the black enough so that it covers the black area and you don't get any gaps in your design. Again, this is all satin stitches. For the red, we're gonna put our caps. Anytime you're doing foam, you're gonna put caps on it so that it cuts the end of the foam off. Then we do the letter A, the whole thing. Remember, notice there is no underlay on this. The underlay has been removed because you don't want it to pre-compress the foam. You want it to be nice and, puffy. Here, I'm gonna put the top cap. I'm gonna do the bottom cap, and then again, it's all satin stitches all the way. And that letter's done. For the eye, we're going to put the white base. Again, it's all satin stitches. The underlay is still included in that one because we're not doing it puff. As we go through it, you notice it's gonna give us a nice white base. The black is gonna go over the top of that, which is also over the A. That's how I know it was created that way. And notice again, I am overlapping the edge of the white. I'm not gonna butt the colors together. They have to be overlapped just a little bit to make sure that we get good coverage and we're not left with any little gaps on the design. Once I finish that, I'm gonna start with the red caps again. We're gonna do the end caps for the foam, no underlay. The underlay has been removed, and we just sit the satin stitch right there, just like that. Now we're gonna move on to the M. That M is a little tricky, but it's made in 2 steps. The first step is to put the shadow first. Remember, we're going from the bottom forward. So we're gonna stitch the bottom, the shadow to give it that 3D effect. So here comes the shadow. We're doing all that first. And then the M is actually gonna start on the left side. And notice we're putting the caps first. We're gonna put the caps on the design at the very ends of the M, and we're gonna start stitching. And all this is satin stitches all the way across. Notice there is no underlay on this. And if you also pay attention, there's enough overlap onto the pink so that it covers the image thoroughly and we don't get any gaps in our design. And then we have the other layer of satin, and we're just going horizontal satins all the way through. The trickiest part is the curved satin for the top of the M, but that's okay. It stitches out just fine. And we're overlapping with satin stitches, no underlay. And finally, we finish with the M. Now comes the I at the end of Miami. So this one is just two colors. It's just the red and the yellow. So I'm gonna give it a very thick base. This one does have a slight underlay, not a big deal, and it's only satin. We're gonna do our satin cap ends for the yellow, for the top and the bottom, and now we go ahead and do the satin fill for the top, for the whole eye. No underlay, again, the underlay was removed. Finally, we do the M on this one. So we're gonna do the pink base. Remember, you always wanna do your shadows first. So we're just doing the little caps, anything that's gonna be exposed as the shadow, the 3D effect, and we're gonna make the black satin on top. All this is satin. I can't emphasize that enough, it's all satin. Here, if you notice the black, the part of the M that's rising, it does overlap that little base just by a little bit. That's all you need. You wanna make sure that it doesn't have a gap. If you were to put the black, the part of the M that's gonna come up right up against the satin stitch on the bottom, you will get that gap. So you always wanna overlap by a little bit. Now comes the rest of the M, and look how they are overlapping the shadows. You want to get that nice overlap, otherwise you will have gaps in your design. And we finish with that. Now for the back of the hat, we can take the M, the I, and the A and copy them into a new design. Or you can do them again. Now this one is going to be just the same. Because the image is smaller, we need to make sure that our overlaps are good. So on this design, you can leave the underlay, you can take it on and off, it doesn't matter. Because this one, there's no puff, it's all underlay. But because I did just copy and paste and just reduce the size of the image a little bit, that's all I needed. However, on this one, I did have to tighten up the images just a little bit to make sure we had enough overlap. And remember to test, test, and test again. In this instance, it doesn't matter whether you do what order you do them in, but the I does overlap the A in this sense. So we start with the A doing the satin stitch. Notice how there's not as much room on this one than there was on the first A that we did, because we want to make sure that we get plenty of coverage. The image is a little bit smaller, and sometimes the threads kind of bleed into each other just a little bit. Now comes the yellow part. Notice that there is a lot of overlap. The black is almost to the edge of the yellow, all the way around. And on this design, we don't need caps, so those were removed, and we can just do a straight satin all the way up and a straight satin all the way up on the other side. The overlay was removed, doesn't matter. We don't need it, it's not gonna do any difference. Here we're making the I. Notice it does overlap the very tip of the A, and we are covering to make sure we don't leave any gaps in the design. The black covers the edge of the white perfectly so that there's no gaps. And finally, we put the straight satin just right above the top of it with plenty of overlap. That's gonna give us all the coverage we need. For the M, we do the same thing. We lay down our foundation, which is the shade of the M first, the shadow part, and we simply overlap the black over it. Now, this was just copied and pasted, and we kind of moved the edges around just a little bit to make sure that there was plenty of coverage and overlap. And once we do that, that's that. And that is how we did it. Through the magic of the internet and Wi-Fi, we have magically sent the images to the machine. Now we're gonna set up the machine so that we can get the design in, select the colors, select the hoop, so we can go ahead and make our recreation. First thing we're gonna do is select our design. Here they are, both of them. Selecting the Miami design. It's always a good idea to get your run sheet printed before you head to your machine. To print out your run sheet, you can hit the File button, Print Preview, and it's gonna give you the run sheet with the image that has been digitized, as well as all the colors. Since it's hard to remember all the color sequence, by printing the run sheet, you know exactly what color each step is going to take. What I like to do is I like to put the number of the color that coincides with the spool on my run sheet so that all I have to do is come to the machine and plug those numbers in. I'm going to select the design. The next step is to select the hoop. My design has been selected, the hoop has been selected. Now it's time to select the colors. This is where you can make a mistake, so it's very important to be real careful. We're gonna start with the black color, and then we're gonna go to number 5, then 16, 10, 4, 16, 1, 18, 16, 5, 1, and last but not least, number 4. So having the numbers written down makes quick work of this. So we are on number 4. If you hit number 4 again, you can't go any further than that, so we're gonna hit save. The last thing you're gonna do, which is very crucial, is don't forget to put the machine on automatic manual. This is going to allow the machine to stop at every step. So after every outline, we're gonna place the puff, then it's gonna do the next outline and we're gonna puff. If you leave it on automatic, it's just gonna keep going through all the colors and you're not gonna have time to put your puff. Once it's on automatic manual and we're all done selecting the colors, we're gonna hit the home button. And now it is time to hoop the hat and get it ready for embroidery. Before I start any project, I always start with a fresh bobbin. We're gonna take our bobbin case, we're gonna insert the bobbin. It's gonna make the shape of a 9. We're gonna take the bobbin and place it inside the bobbin case. We're gonna find the little groove, put it under the pressure plate, and wrap it around the little pigtail twice. Once, twice. When you're looking at the bobbin like this, make sure that the bobbin is spinning clockwise. Now that the bobbin and the bobbin case are ready, we're gonna go ahead and put it in the rotary hook. When putting the bobbin in, make sure that you hear the snap. If it doesn't snap, you cannot continue. There it is. Now for good measure, I'm just gonna pull the thread to make sure it's coming out nice and smooth. We got a smooth pull, we're ready to go. Using our cap hoop, we're gonna go ahead and hoop the hat that I found. What a find, huh? It's gonna be great. Make sure you have the sweatband out. We're not gonna use stabilizer on this because it is a structured hat, so we don't need it. You can use it if you want to. Here's a fun fact for you. In 1849, out of New York City, there was a baseball team called the Knickerbockers. And when it was sunny out, they used to wear straw hats, which led to the invention of the 6-panel hat that we now know and love. What do you think? Pretty cool, huh? When putting the cap onto the cap driver, make sure you squeeze the components together and not push them. Now that the hat is hooped, we're gonna put it in setup mode and trace the design. It is imperative that you trace the design. This will show you exactly where the needle is gonna land on the hat, just to make sure you don't hit the hoop. Now that the trace is done, we're gonna go ahead and trace the design. And make sure you press the presser foot down so that you can see exactly where it's gonna hit the hat. Before we start, make sure you have the puff. We have 4 different colors, and so each puff matches the thread that we're using. Now that it's done tracing, we're gonna go back home. Hey, I'm gonna share a tip with you. Come, take a look. This is to illustrate what happens when you're sewing on puff. Here I have 6 density or 0.60, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this is 0.1. So 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. The reason you want to increase the density of your stitches when you're using puff is because the needle perforates the puff, and that's what gonna allow it to tear off easily. On this 6 right here, if I try to pull it apart, it's not going anywhere because I don't have enough cuts. It's not perforated enough. As I get closer to the one, notice how it's just gonna tear right off. So all these micro perforations cause the foam to tear off. If your design is not dense enough, then you're gonna get things like this. Whoops. It may tear, but you're gonna get a lot of these little things. So on this design, this is the one that was 0.1. Look how easy that comes off once you tear everything apart. That's what we're looking for when we have the correct density on our hat design. I hope you enjoy this tip. Now that we have all our ducks lined up in a row, we're gonna begin the design. All right, we're halfway there. I'm gonna remove the hat, take the cap driver out, and then we're gonna have to change for the hoop arms in order to do the back of the hat. Let's do it. In order to remove the cap driver, there are 2 screws holding it in place. Either a Phillips screw or an Allen key. This one happens to be a 3mm Allen key. Once they're both loosened, you can just slide the cap hoop out. On the pantograph, there are many slots where you can place the arms. If you're not sure where they go, one thing I like to do is I like to put the bracket arms onto the hoop just like this first, and then slowly introduce them into the pantograph. That way they're always centered. I hope that works for you. With the pantograph centered, I'm gonna place this right in the slots that coincide with the hoop, and there we go. Now we know that the bracket is gonna be perfect just like this. Now we can just tighten them. Just like before, I have my run sheet ready and we are going to select the design, get it ready for embroidery. Select design, there's my MIA, select. Now we're gonna select the hoop. We're using the 4.25 Mighty hoop. So the closest one to that would be hoop B. And it's okay, we're doing a small design and it's gonna fit in just perfectly. We have our hoop selected, now we're gonna select our color. Selecting the colors is gonna be just like the first one, except we're missing 2 letters, so we're only doing it for 3. I'm gonna follow my list and punch in the numbers. For this one, we can leave it on automatic because we're not putting any puff. So we can go ahead and put it on auto all the way, and now we can just let the image run all by itself. Once we're done, we're gonna hit save. Now we're gonna take the cap off the cap hoop so we can hoop it with the Mighty hoop. Just gonna set that aside. Quick tip, store your Mighty hoops like this. That way you don't have to worry about pulling them apart very hard and you don't break them. Real nice. I'm gonna take the inside part of the hoop and put it in the hat. Now you can use a little bit of stabilizer, so I'm just gonna do that together. Put the stabilizer inside. Put the inside part of the hoop, just like so. And now the magic happens, just like that. Now you notice it's a little bit loose in certain areas. The beauty of this is you can kind of pull on the material just a little bit and it'll flatten out real nice for you. Beautiful, nice and flat. That's gonna be perfect. We have our center line that coincides with the center seam of the hat, so we're good to go. We know the design is gonna be nice and centered. Before we go any further, we need to make sure that the design is inverted. If you leave it like this, you're gonna have a really nice design, but it's gonna be upside down. By going to design settings, in the design setting, we want to flip or rotate the image. If you were to flip it, it would make it mirror. So we want to go to rotate, and we're going to just turn it on its head. Excellent. We're going to hit OK. Now our image is inverted. We can put the hoop onto the arms and hit the start button. We're all ready to go. Don't forget, always start with a fresh bobbin. Our hat is hooped and it is in the machine. Now we are going to trace the area first, and then we're going to trace the design to make sure we put it in the right place. So we're going to do the trace area first. And now, while holding the needle down, I'm going to do the trace design to see exactly where the design is going to lay. And I'm happy with that. We're going to hit the home button, and now we can start the design. All right, we're all done. Now, we just have to clean it up. Now, there are many ways to clean this up. Since I have the back on the hoop already, I'm gonna use the stability of the hoop to help me out. You can use a pick. You can use these nice little fancy scissors. They are jump stitch cutters. They're super cool because you hook the thread and then you can cut them. And then there is this type of scissor as well. It's the same principle, but this one is not spring loaded. You just have to do it barber style, okay? A pair of tweezers would help, and you can use these. Or you can use an old needle to help you tuck the foam in, but that's gonna be for the foam part. For this one, I'm just gonna use my tweezers and my little jump stitch cutters. These are the long ones for the long distance ones, all right? So all I have to do is just grab my thread. The hook is gonna go right under the thread to give you that close cut and snip. Perfect. Next thing, we're gonna do the other one. And that's about it for the back. Everything looks great, nothing to do. We're going to remove the hoop. Don't forget to put your mighty hoops like this so that you can take them on and off very easily when you're putting them away. If you put them away this way, your hands are gonna get stuck and it's a little bit hard to take them apart. So like this, that's the recommended way to keep and store your mighty hoops. Put them on a hook, you're good to go. All right, now that we're done with the back, we're gonna go to the front. This is where we're gonna use the little pick, or you can use a pair of tweezers to gently nudge the foam back under the thread. So we're gonna use the tip of the tweezers to kind of go between the threads and tuck the foam inside so we get that nice clean look. For the cap, I'm gonna use the little pick to just push the foam inside that little area. Here's a small little jump stitch right here, easily taken care of with our jump stitch scissors. I'm pushing the foam back underneath the stitches. All right, so in case you're wondering why I'm doing this, imagine, if you will, that you were magnified onto the threads. My fingers represent the threads, the paper represents the foam. We're using this little stick to force the foam back in between the threads so that they no longer hide. Remember, every time the needle penetrated the foam, it kind of cut it, but it leaves these little micro perforations or these little tips. That's okay. So with the tool, we're just tucking the foam back in so that now the thread can rest on top of it and give us a nice contour. All right, now I saved the best letter for last, the mighty M. All right, that's it. Now I'm gonna cut the backing and we're ready to wear this hat. Don't cut the hat. We worked real hard on it. Don't wanna do that. Instead of sitting here and cutting all these ends, I could use a type of big lighter, but a really good lighter to use is the torch type. They emit a torch style fire, and then you can just run it over here real quickly and it makes disappear. All right, it's all done. Now it's time for some fun in the sun.
Whoa.
Hey, what do you think, man?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, thanks for letting me borrow your hat. I got a question. How much you pay for that?
Oh, this one $40.
Oh, wow. All right, that's awesome. All right, guys, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I had a lot of fun doing it. I learned a lot about digitizing and how to apply different techniques to the same hat. Now, I encourage you to go to our last episode of Deconstructed, where you're gonna learn how to make a premium sweater using embroidery and a two-step heat transfer process, just like this one. I'll make sure to leave a link to the video above and in the description below. Most important, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell for the next episodes that are coming up. You don't want to miss it. If you're looking for more inspiration on your next embroidery project or want more decorating advice, check us out on Facebook and join our embroidery and printing business help group. And if you haven't done so already, follow us on Instagram and TikTok for informative and entertaining content. Thank you for watching. Hasta la vista, baby. And now I gotta go find the next garment.